My name is Chelsea and I am your host. Today we are talking about all things ADHD in children. If you're wondering, a search for an alternative to traditional routes for managing ADHD, you're in the right place. While medications are commonly prescribed for ADHD, more and more families are looking to address the root causes of the condition using natural, non pharmaceutical approaches. And one of the most promising methods is diet and nutrition, or to borrow a phrase coined by today's guest, a food first approach. This week, we are thrilled to be joined by Dana Kay, a passionate advocate for a holistic approach to treating ADHD in children. Dana is a board certified health and nutrition practitioner, two-time international best-selling author, and the CEO and founder of the ADHD Thrive Institute. She has helped over 1,300 families find freedom from ADHD symptoms so that children with ADHD can thrive at home, at school, and ultimately in life. She's here today to share her expertise on how a balanced, nutrient dense diet can help support children with ADHD and even reduce their reliance on medication. Dana, welcome to the show.
Chelsea, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
The first thing I want to hear is the journey that brought you to this line of work. It was kind of a calling for you almost.
Yeah, definitely was. But believe it or not, I was actually completely removed from the health and wellness space. Between you and me, I was an accountant. Don't tell
Wow.
anyone. And I always had a dream as a little girl to be a high-powered executive with my own office, and I achieved that goal. And I plan to sort of continue in that field, and I might have done so.
Yeah.
If concerns over my son's health hadn't have grown as much as they did. You see, when his meltdowns, when he was younger, became more and more dramatic, and
Okay.
his energy seemed so much higher than every other child his age. My gut told me that there really was something missing, and eventually it all sort of caught up, and his teachers started noticing differences as well, and he was diagnosed with ADHD at the age of 4 and
Okay.
immediately put on medication.
Immediately on medication.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And so I was quite young for his age, but to be honest, at first I remember feeling relieved with his diagnosis and the medication, thinking to myself that we were finally getting the help that we needed.
Of
Um,
course. Yeah.
and it wasn't that I was a bad mum.
No, of
I
course
felt
not. And I mean, the opposite, if anything, the way you just said that you had the gut feeling that there was something up. I mean, that's a mother's instinct right there.
100%, 100%. And, I was excited to fill the prescription. I was like bounced into that drugstore and I was like, give it to me, give it to me. It was going to be the pill that was going to fix our family.
Yeah.
I was wrong. But, at first things were good with the medication, but then his dosage increased. He started to
Okay.
experience side effects, and the side effects became worse and worse. His doctor prescribed a second prescription to counteract the side effects of the first one. And this continued until my son, who was now 5, was on 3 very strong medications at once.
That's a vicious cycle as well, isn't it?
Huge vicious cycle, and I've seen
Yeah.
it time and time again with so many other families. And for us, when the doctor suggested a 4th medication to counteract some new side effects that had popped up, I just couldn't do it anymore. And that's when my career path completely changed. I went back to school. I did my science health degree, multiple
Wow.
specific certifications in this area, and I really learned how food and other natural strategies can affect so many aspects of our lives. And I began to learn that ADHD symptoms can be reduced naturally. Now, today my son is about to turn 15.
Wow.
He's in grade 9. He is thriving. He hasn't been on meds for years. He's a straight A student. That doesn't matter. But
Yeah.
the most important thing for me is he's happy.
Yeah.
He's
Of
thriving.
course.
My family's happy. We now have, peace and calm in our house, as much as you can when you've got 2 boys.
Yeah.
Let's be realistic here.
I hear you.
But Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to say for our audience members who maybe have no experience with ADHD,
Yeah.
could you explain it from like your simplest point of view?
Yeah, look, it's actually one of the most common mental disorders affecting children. 6 million children have been diagnosed in the USA. And I say that because that's where I live. I know I don't
Mhm.
sound it
Me too.
as you as well. And three-quarters of those kids are receiving treatment of strong medications and or behavioral therapy.
Wow.
And symptoms of ADHD varies a lot from child to child. When my son's ADHD symptoms were at their worst, he sort of struggled to sit still, bouncing off the walls.
Mhm.
There
Yeah.
was a lot of emotional dysregulation, meltdowns and tantrums. Our family felt like we were walking around on eggshells, just sort of waiting for the next meltdown to occur. But,
Okay.
but the standard ADHD symptoms fall into sort of two main categories. We've got hyperactive and impulsive,
Okay.
or we've got inattentive, or you can actually have a combination of two. So
Okay.
things like being unable to sit still or hyperactivity, impulsivity, fidgeting, unable to focus or pay attention,
Yeah.
excessive physical movement and talking, aggression, and emotional dysregulation.
And what is that what is happening inside the body? I mean, they are kind of the how it presents. What is it actually in the body that's happening?
Yeah, look, it's an interesting question that you ask it that way. I haven't been ever asked that question in that way, and I'll answer it in the way that I believe what's happening in the
Okay.
body.
Yeah.
Now, there's evidence out there that you can be genetically predisposed to ADHD. However, it doesn't mean that it is your destiny, and that these symptoms can't be reduced or removed altogether. So when I think of, what's happening in the body, and based on my experience, I kind of like to explain it with this funny analogy. So
Okay.
please
Yeah.
please bear with me if it's okay.
Yeah.
So look, we've I just happen to have a trash can sitting next to me, but we're all sort of born with an internal metaphorical trash can in our bodies. So if
Okay.
those just listening in, I'm holding like a mini trash can here. And our goal through life is to keep the trash can as empty as possible. Uh, so, what that means is we want to keep the toxic load in our body low.
Yes.
Okay. So our goal is to keep it low. There's lots of stuff that can go into that trash can. We're not all born with an empty trash can. So, for example, my son's trash can already had stuff in it when he was born because he was induced with medication because he wasn't growing properly. He came out, was given medication straight away, put on a CPAP machine, wasn't breastfed because he was in the
Hmm.
NICU, things like that. And that trash can kept filling up over time,
Okay.
as it can for all of us. So, inflammatory substances like toxins from the environment, medication, poor diet, pesticides on our fruits and veggies, bacteria, parasites, things like that. It all contributes to an overflowing trash can. The thing is, with most people, our body is designed to work to keep emptying the trash can on a daily basis. We take the trash can out every once a week and we put it
Yeah.
on the sidewalk, and the garbage truck comes around and empties it. And that's what our body's designed to do. But we're all born with different genetics, and some of us can easily empty our trash cans when they get too full, meaning our detoxification pathways in our body are working well. But for some, they can't empty their trash cans because their detoxification pathways are not working, just like my
Okay.
son's. So, what happens is that trash can gets too full with these inflammatory substances. We can't detox properly. The trash can fills up, it overflows
Yeah.
into the body, allowing inflammation to spread. And that is why symptoms begin to show. And this is what's happening in most children's body with ADHD. Their trash can's too full, it's overflowing, their body is filled with inflammation, and we need to reduce it. Does that make sense?
That is the best description I have never understood ADHD until you used that analogy. That was incredible. That
Look,
gives it such a clear I feel like you've answered my next 4 questions with that.
oh,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
That
look,
was
there's obviously differing opinions out there. And traditional medicine will think of it very, very differently.
Okay.
Traditional medicine will think of it, it's purely a brain disorder and there's nothing you can do about it except for put a band-aid on it with strong amphetamine medication. But, as you mentioned earlier, I've worked with over 1,300 families, and I can tell you that a lot of those kids, when we reduce that inflammation in their body starts to thrive. They start to reduce those symptoms. And, probably 50 to 60% of them would now not be diagnosed with ADHD,
Wow.
because ADHD really at the end of the day is just a cluster of symptoms. And
It is. Yeah.
those symptoms can come from many different root causes.
So my next question was going to be, would ADHD present differently in adults to children? But I mean, with the analogy, I would assume it's the same system, really.
Well, look, it does present differently between children and in adults. In a child, like hyperactivity is like bouncing off the walls, but in an adult, it might present as restlessness, not being able to sort of
Mm,
sit and calm the body. Adults have a better ability to control their emotions, and so rather than a meltdown or a tantrum that's happening right in front of you
it's an
with a
outburst
child,
or something. Yeah.
exactly, with a with an adult, it might be like an anger come out in anger in their words, which is a lot more controllable than like a meltdown, bawling their eyes out, screaming at the top of their lungs. So it does present differently. But, I'll say, like, the World Health Organization ranks chronic inflammatory diseases as the greatest threat to human health. And there's
Oh,
so many years of research that conclude that chronic inflammatory diseases are the most significant cause of death in the world, but that's one of the biggest hidden stressors in our body, contributing to ADHD symptoms and most disease out there.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Like, inflammation is really probably the root cause of any disorder, diseases out there that people are experiencing today.
Wow. And are there any? I mean, this is a hopeful question. Are there any like surefire strategies that meaningfully reduce inflammation in the body?
Yeah, look, for sure, there are so many things families can do, but I like to think of it. Every child's a bio individual. What works for one child
Mm,
might not necessarily work for another child, and so really taking that bio individual approach is, super, super important. But you mentioned earlier, food first.
yes.
And so that's a really big sort of approach that I take in my work. It's not the only approach, but it's kind of like when you're building a house. If
Mhm.
that house doesn't have a solid foundation, it's not going to be very strong. And it's exactly the same with our body. If our bodies don't have a solid foundation of diet, it's not going to be very strong.
I mean,
That's true.
it's the fuel. Yeah.
Exactly. It's true for us as adults. It's true for our children. And when I started learning about the effects of diet, the effects of gut health, in particular on ADHD symptoms and how we heal the gut, and ADHD symptoms are reduced or completely removed, and how food feeds our gut as well. I think that rather than when you go to a doctor and you get diagnosed with ADHD, they give you a pill, they should recommend a food first approach. And that's what I recommend to all the families that I work with. Look, I'm not against medication,
Yeah.
um, but it shouldn't be a first course of action, not when food can sometimes be even more effective and with no side effects to
Yeah.
worry about. I mean, who do you know that doesn't feel better when they eat better?
Oh my gosh. It's a surefire cure for what ails you, really, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly.
So let's talk about being the parent of an ADHD diagnosed child and how that a kind of experience, your parenting experience would have, I guess, changed once you took the matter into your own hands with your food first philosophy.
Yeah, look, I know how hard it is to have a child with challenges. Every day, it was like being on an emotional roller coaster, and that wasn't what I had pictured when
Mm,
I first had a family. I
Yeah.
had this picture of a happy family, in that photo frame,
Yeah.
and that, we would go out and we'd have fun together. But,
And that I
everyone.
assume, like, you'd be in control at all times, you know?
Yes, yes, and, everyone would be happy, getting along, we would be smiling, there'd be love in the house, but every morning I woke up dreading the day ahead, dreading what mood my son would be in that day. I'd go to bed every night feeling so guilty about how I talked to him, or
Oh.
feeling guilty that I wasn't giving my other son the attention that he
Mm.
needed, and it was like walking on eggshells every single day. I was so unhappy. I was angry all the time, and that is not that view that I had of what I wanted my family to be. And so when, I took that matter into my own hands and I started to see that improvement in him, for him, within a matter of weeks of doing some of the strategies that I teach, he was a different child. His body just had this peace about it. It calmed down. His meltdowns, like, that was one of the first things that changed. The meltdowns were less, volatile. They became fewer and further in between. And we started to enjoy each other's company again. And we
Wow.
started to repair the bonds. And so for anyone listening out there that has a child that's got challenges, know that you're not walking on this journey alone.
Yeah.
There are people out there that can help, and there is hope because, as I said, like, our life has dramatically changed, and I've seen it in over 1,300 other families as well. Like, you don't need to suffer. You might have that picture perfect family view in your mind. It can be a reality, and if
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
hold on, yeah, if you can hold on to that, know that that's going to help you taking one step forward each and every day, because, like, one step brings you closer to that goal.
Hey guys, I would like to take a moment to introduce you to our app, Yoga Plus. You will have access to an incredible selection of videos led by top instructors in yoga, fitness, nutrition, and so much more. Download our Yoga Plus app available on iOS and Android today.